lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLYP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. We're on episode 11. It's Gary Sheffield numbers. It's Brett Gardner numbers. And as always, I am your host, Julian Coltree, alongside my compadre hosts, the one and only Josh Levin.
What up, what up?
And Eric Ray Sepulveda. Boys, how are you doing today?
Good, man. I mean, what are we discussing how I'm doing in life, how we're doing in the Yankees universe? I mean, it's different.
Well, we're going to get to the Yankees universe in a minute. We have all that's what the podcast is about. So we're going to be talking, obviously, about what's going on with the Yankees. I want to know what's going on with you, Eric Ray.
Well, I am Eric Ray Sepulveda at E-Ray Chosen One. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing fine. I'm just, we're here. Another Tuesday night, and I'm excited to talk Yanks with you guys, with my boys. So let's do it.
I agree. I'm excited for it. Josh is excited for it. And we have a lot to talk about because for the last 2.5 months on this podcast, over the last 11 episodes of this show that we have recorded, we have been begging. We have been pleading for Major League Baseball and teams in Major League Baseball to do something. And then a team in New York City answered our prayers. And no, it was not the New York Yankees. It was the New York Mets, who struck a gigantic deal this past weekend to acquire Francisco Lindor and Carlos Cookie Carrasco. We all wanted Lindor, but it seemed like Stevie Cohen wanted to make that big splash, and so he did it. And in order to replace his roster, he got Francisco Lindor in exchange for Ahmed Rosario, Andres Gimenez, Josh Wolf, and Isaiah Green. And boys, when we really talk about it, and there was a lot to talk about this weekend, this was the first domino to fall. And from a Yankees perspective, we have more than anybody could possibly comprehend in terms of things to talk about. But I will start you off light with, what does this mean for the market, and what does this mean for the Mets?
Well, for the market, I think hopefully from a bigger picture standpoint, it means that things are starting to slowly happen, which would be nice because I think, we're a month away from spring training, so it would be nice to see some people sign. So I think hopefully that's a sign of things to come and a good thing at that. In terms of, on the other side of the coin, it tells you, that return for a guy of that caliber with another pitcher of that caliber in Carrasco, that is not anything to write home about. That return has been panned by people who know more than we do. And I think that just goes to show you that it really is it's a buyer's market and it's not a seller's market because, a guy of Lindor's ability should be traded for more than what the Indians were able to get him for. And the fact that the Indians didn't have a better offer or an offer they thought was better probably goes to show you that a lot of teams are just not willing to spend, whether that be dollars or prospects in trades. So I think that's a bad sign for baseball in general. I think for the Mets, obviously it's a slam dunk trade that you make 10 times out of 10 and you don't think twice about it. And I think for them, it's fantastic. It's great for their fans. It's great that Steve Cohen has this new move to put on his mantle. It's the big splash of the offseason. No move is going to top this from any other team. And they took advantage of, like I said, a weak market where not enough teams are really willing to do much. And them and the Padres, that's it. And I think in years past, this is a move that the Yankees probably would have or could have made, but we're not at that point right now. And so I think for the Mets, like I said, slam dunk.
Josh, I mean, you hit it again right on the nail. This Yankees, that's not even a saying. I don't even know. What's the saying?
So flustered.
Nail on the head.
I'm just like, I'm so hot already.
Out here.
Nail on the head.
He's been waiting.
Nail on the head, everybody.
4 days to lay in.
I wish we did this podcast right that morning. First of all, as you guys know, let me tell you about that morning. I work overnights, so I wake up around 12:30, 1 o'clock. But I see this tweet, and then I see our chat blowing up, and I see that my Puerto Rican papa is gone. Now listen, the Yankees were never going to get Francisco Lindor. They really weren't. And I believe that. I think you guys did too. But I don't like this. I just don't like this as a Yankee fan. Even though the Mets are in the National League, that's fine. But something about it I just don't like. And it's not, look, listen, it's good for baseball, right? It's good for the city. But I'm selfish. What's good for me? You know? What's good for us as Yankee fans? And again, this hopefully gets the market going. And what this pissed me off about is it's not that the Mets got Lindor. It's that the Yankees are still having their hands in their pockets with our main guy out there that we need to do something about.
You know why it pissed you off? And I'll tell you right now.
Do it.
Because it's what Josh said. The Yankees could have had him. That return was weak. You cannot tell me, and it's a disgrace. The Indians should be disgraced, and everybody from ownership on down should be kicked out of Major League Baseball that they traded somebody who was that big of a superstar. And you could make a case the best shortstop in baseball right now for what amounts to serviceable but not top-level prospects or Major League caliber players. And that's why it hurts, because the Yankees not only could have gotten him, but they should have gotten him, or at least should have been in for him, and they were none of those things, as we will talk about a little bit later. But that's why you're pissed. That's why we're all pissed.
I think they might have. There were some reports they checked down him, but it was
checked.
But it was never serious, and that's what
it never. Yeah.
I mean,
the idea was that they were always, and this was the tweet. I have it up, so I'll pull it up right now. The tweet was from Brendan Cuddy of NJ.com, and he said, "For what it's worth, the last I had heard was the Yankees were never really in on Francisco Lindor, preferring to wait out on DJ LeMahieu, and he is their only and is their top priority. Lindor would have been the pivot if LeMahieu had fallen through, which has not happened yet, and obviously will not happen now, considering they did not get him. So they put all their eggs in the DJ LeMahieu basket. Good, fine, but considering the return that we all saw for Lindor, it makes you really think that, like, man, DJ's the guy, but, like, we couldn't have given this guy – couldn't have just gone out and grabbed bull by the horns and gotten this dude for that and had the top shortstop, young, you know, with the potential to give him a big contract and controllable. So it all plays into those things.
The thing is, I guess, right, is the Yankees made this type of deal for the same exact thing was Giancarlo Stanton a couple years ago. The Yankees preyed on a smaller market. The Marlins wanted to get rid of money, wanted to get rid of that contract. And here the Yankees were. They took it on. And the Mets, with their new shiny owner, Steve Cohen, did exactly what the Yankees used to do, and he did that with the Cleveland Indians. And, again, if you're a Mets fan, this is exactly what you dreamed of, right? When you saw this guy sign the papers and you saw this announcement that Steve Cohen was coming in for the Wilpons, who I think one of our Mets fans, the big signing they did 2 years ago was Jet Lowry, out of all people, who didn't even play a game for the Mets, I think. Like, they got their guy in Lindor, and guys, I don't think they're done, to be honest. I honestly think that the Mets will sign Springer. I know they're, like, some reporters are saying now, you know, because you have the luxury tax and the double tax and all that, they might not have enough money to sign Springer and some other pitchers that they need, like bullpen pitchers, like I think they're in on Brad Hand. But I honestly don't think they're done. And I think if you're a Mets fan right now, you have to be ecstatic. You have to be happy, because this is like what they've been waiting for forever. And this is their time to shine. And with everyone else, you know, every other team not wanting to spend money and everyone else sitting back, the Mets are here, man. Mets and Padres, but the Mets are still not done. And it's something quite to see, because we've never seen it in our lifetime, right? That the New York Mets are the guys going out in every freaking article, every report. We're hearing them for every name.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. I guess maybe a decade ago, a little bit more than that, they did go out there, and obviously the Wilpons spend money. So the idea that, like, the Wilpons never spent money is different, because obviously they did what it needed to do to sign Carlos Beltran, and they went out there and made it so that the Mets could trade for Johan Santana. But for me, it's and to play off, and obviously we're not a Mets pod, but, you know, it plays into the conversation. For anybody who says, oh, Sandy says they're not that interested in Springer, they're not that interested in Bauer, they're not that interested in Brad Hand. To that, I would say, yeah, but they've never had an owner like Steve Cohen who seems to be interested in going out there and making the name and then doing his dance on Twitter that he likes to do. I mean, it was like an hour after he made the trade, or the trade got, posted into the echelons of Twitter, that he was like, all right, that's all good and fun, but let's talk about the black jerseys again, almost to like dunk or put that little bit of, like the meme with the girl looking with the fire behind her, like he burned the place down and he wants to smirk about it too, because he's interested in having this team win, which is why you really think about it, the Mets will be in on all these players. And that's why it hurts us as Yankee fans even more, because man, and this is a good point, I think, to kick off this conversation about what this means for the Yankees. You could say you wish the Yankees had an owner like that, but they did have an owner like that. They had George Steinbrenner. They had the guy who would go out there and make all the moves. And they had the guy who hated when the Mets had the headlines, hated when the Rays had the headlines, and hated when Boston had the headlines. And since George is gone, obviously there's that adage of what would George do, but most of the fact has been that Hal Steinbrenner and Randy Levin and Brian Cashman and the rest of the managing partners for this team are content with this team being relevant. And when there's outcry from the fan base, they will get their guys. But I have this issue with another team I root for, which is Notre Dame football. And they have the brand. And because you have the brand, you don't need to surpass the brand. You're going to be in the playoff every year. You're going to have the opportunity to get the exposure. And right now it looks as though the Yankees are kind of like been there, done that. We have the team that will get us to the playoffs every year. We still have the brand, so we don't need to overextend ourselves and hurt ourselves in order to worry about that. And it stinks because now we're the have-nots, because we don't have George Steinbrenner anymore. We don't have the owner who will win at all costs. So to see somebody else have that, and yeah, it's not the same person. It's not like they left us and went to the Mets, but it's the same principle. It hurts. It hurts deep down. It hurts your core, and it makes you feel like shit.
I wish I could disagree with you, because for the longest time when people have said, well, if George was around, blah, 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 it used to bother me so much because he's not, and nothing is going to change that, So when people would say that, I would be like, that's a lazy excuse. That's a lazy answer for, whatever is going on. But I do certainly feel that with the current regime, Hal Steinbrenner in charge, they want to win. I'm not going to say that they don't care about winning, because if they didn't care about winning, they wouldn't have signed Garrett Cole. They wouldn't have traded for Giancarlo Stanton. They want to win, but they will not win at all costs. And I think that's the key difference, because you see a team. So now it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do, because this Lindor move doesn't put them over the top, but a couple other moves could. And when you're on the brink of that, when you're a very good team that's a couple pieces away from being like a great team, you would like to see your GM and your owner, whoever, go the extra mile and finish the job. And that's what we've been saying that the Yankees haven't been doing. Whether that be last offseason after the Cole signing, it was pretty much quiet the rest of the way. What they're doing right now seems like it's DJ LeMahieu or nothing. And if they do get DJ LeMahieu, I don't know if there's going to be any other major league changes. So it seems to me that right now, the Yankees would love to win the World Series. That's the whole point of this whole thing. That's why they do what they do every single day, why they spend the money they spend, because let's not kid ourselves, they still have the highest payroll. But the difference is the winning comes at a cost, and the cost is going over the luxury tax. And that's not a price that they're willing to pay, at least not right now. And it hasn't been for years. So that's where our frustration comes in, where it's not so much about Lindor, because Lindor only fits if LeMahieu is gone. And we understand that their number one thing to do is to bring him back, right? So we're not sitting here saying, oh, well, they really should have just traded for Lindor and then signed DJ and we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. That's not how it's going to go, because you do have to pay these people over $20 million a year. You're not going to pay someone $20 million a year without having a place for them in your lineup or wherever on your depth chart. So we're not saying that that's what, it's a Lindor thing that's making us upset or frustrated. It's a more overall general picture of like, we want DJ, so we're just going to wait for that to domino to fall. And then when that happens, we'll see what's left over to do and if we can do anything else. What we would like to see is them go sign DJ and then go make a starting pitching move, go make another bullpen move, go sign some depth, some middle infield depth, because we don't want to see Tyler Wade and Tyro Estrada all the time. And we don't want to see Mike Tauchman in the outfield and Mike Ford at first base or DH to make those sort of improvements. But that doesn't seem to be what's going on right now. And that's what we're upset about. That's what we're annoyed about, is we want to see that happen.
Urgency.
There's no urgency.
Exactly.
There hasn't been a sense of urgency. The Garrett Cole signing was one of those, no doubt about it, no-brainer decisions. Same with the Giancarlo Stanton trade. You don't think twice when something like that falls, when that opportunity falls to you. You do it. The point is that after that, you're not done. Your team isn't finished just because you signed the biggest pitching contract in history. When the Yankees signed the biggest pitching contract in history the first time, which was CC Sabathia, maybe that was the second time, because that was the Mussina. I think Mussina was the largest. But then when they did it with CC, they also signed AJ, and they also signed Teixeira.
Yep.
So, there's a little bit of a difference here that's going on right now, and I think that's the whole frustration.
They could go out there right now, and they could sign DJ LeMahieu tomorrow. Who gives a crap if they have to bid against somebody else? You do it because that's how you make your team better. And then say, you know what? Throw caution to win. We want to win. We want to give our fan base a title. Let's trade all our big prospects for Luis Castillo. Let's make this team better, and let's win.
Yes.
And that's going. There you go. That's two moves that you didn't have to hamper your roster for, because Castillo's under team control. He's a young, controllable product who's really good. And LeMahieu was on your team last year. You do what you need to do to win, and that urgency isn't happening right now.
You mentioned, Josh, like the no-brainer moves, right, where it was Stanton and Cole. How is this not a no-brainer? This is the same situation. DJ LeMahieu was your MVP the last 2 years. You signed him for 2 years and, $24 million? And now you're just sitting back not wanting to pay this guy who literally, if you take him out of your lineup, your team is not better than what it was last year. If I'm starting to yell now because I'm getting hot.
That's okay. Get hot.
Do it.
You should be hot.
If he walks away, if they let him go, which I really don't think they're going to, I do still believe they're going to get this done. I think this is all chatter with DJ LeMahieu, with him saying he's upset, and him talking to the Red Sox, him talking to the Mets. We've gone through this all the time. It's not our first rodeo. But they just need to get this done. They need to. And you were saying before, look, I'm not going to sit here and say the Yankees are cheap, because you mentioned we're the highest payroll up there. You know what I mean? We're up there. But what I want to say is that I can't even think right now because I'm too hot. I just can't. They need to sign this guy.
Let me just say that you mentioned like the slam dunk decisions and DJ being another one of those. I feel like, I personally think the Yankees treat other teams' free agents better than their own free agents. If you look back in history, you want to go to whether it's CC, whining and dining him, and whining and dining AJ and Teixeira, taking Machado out for dinner, and Patrick Corbin and Garrett last year. We know how that whole thing went down with the whole, they basically, you blow them away. When you see a guy that's out there that you want and you really believe you have to have, you go out there, you blow them away. So right now the whole thing is like, oh, well, you don't want them to bid against themselves with DJ LeMahieu. You want to make sure that what you're giving him is, the best offer he can get, but not so far out there that, it was over the top and you didn't have to do it. Do you really think last winter when they signed Cole that they gave that whatever his offer was from any other teams, do you really think they only offered him $1 million more? No, they gave him the contract that blew him out of the water that they knew he couldn't say no to. The same thing they did with Sabathia, because Garrett Cole wanted to be here. CC did not, but they gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And that's what you have to do in order to secure the top players in the sport. DJ LeMahieu is a top player in the sport. He's an MVP candidate 2 years running. He's their best player. Aaron Judge is not their best player. DJ LeMahieu is. That guy is out there. Why is this not a situation just like Cole, just like Sabathia, just like any other free agent you want to name, where you put an offer on the table that you say no to this because we don't think you can? They're not doing that. They're telling him, shop yourself around, go look and see what you can get out there, then come back to us at the end, and we'll let you know if we can match or top it. They did that with Derek Jeter. Jeter.
They did.
And then the gall to say that they weren't in on Lindor because this is their number one priority. If it's your number one priority, then go sign him.
Not just number one. The tweet said only. The tweet
Only
said
priority. And that to me is what blows my mind. It blows my mind because they can sit here and leak to the media or leak to whoever that this is the guy that they want. This is what they're focused on. But it is now June 12th when we are recording this podcast, and there haven't even been inklings that they are close. It's Yankees have 4 years in mind. DJ wants more money. DJ wants 5 years. Yankees want to give him the money between the 5 years. They're not close. Meet in the middle. Because what's going to wind up happening is the more that he does talk to other people, the more the Yankees are going to have egg on their face when he signs someplace else. And then we sit here talking about what we were talking about last podcast, which is we have Steven fucking Drew as our second baseman, or Steven fucking Drew Jace as our second baseman. And that's what we have to look forward to, because they want to run around the mill thinking that this is their only priority, but then not do anything about it.
Look, I understand the Yankees taking the patient approach at first, right? Because it appears that, he didn't have any competitive offers out there, right? And it still appears that he doesn't right now. Because if he did, he would have signed, or he would have came back to the Yankees and they would have got something done. But still, like you guys were saying, it's now what? You said a month away from pitchers and catchers. You were patient. Right? You were patient enough. And you just saw your plan B, one of them, gone. How much longer are we going to wait for more plan Bs to sign? And then once again, DJ again walks away. What do we got here? I want to hope that they have a plan. If DJ leaves.
I mean, they probably have a plan, but I'm sure it's not something.
You're not going to like it.
We're not going to like it.
We're not going to like it.
What is your plan C? What is plan C? Andrés Simmons as your shortstop and Gleyber Torres as your second baseman? That makes the team infinitely worse.
Yeah.
Infinitely worse.
Yeah. We're not going to, like you said, whatever I guess plan B was Lindor, right? So that's out the window. So plan C, D, E, whatever. We're not going to like any of those plans. Okay. They may say, all right, well, DJ's gone. So we earmarked $25 million for him in 2021. So we now have $25 million to spend elsewhere. $25 million is not enough to sign a top of the line or, a number 2 starter. It's not enough to get you, to also get you a quality relief arm that they need desperately, in my opinion. It's not enough to get them a shortstop. We would hope Michael Brantley would be part of that, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
That's the plan I would want. Yeah.
And so the only option that we're going to be no matter what happens here, we're not going to be happy, because if they sign DJ, we'll be happy they brought him back, but they won't have made the necessary changes and improvements to the rest of the roster. If he doesn't come back, then obviously we're going to be pissed. So they've kind of put themselves in a corner now where the only way to slightly save face this offseason and to have the fans feeling like there's a chance that they can, do something again in 2021, something of significance, meaning a deep postseason run, is by bringing DJ back. And what they've done now is, with Lindor gone, playing the patient game, if DJ wants a 5th year, if that's what it takes to get him, I don't see how the Yankees have any choice but to give him the 5th year. Because let's just say Toronto or the Mets or the Dodgers have an offer on the table to DJ at some point in the next week or so. That's a 5-year offer at around the number he wants money-wise. The Yankees are going to have to give him the 5th year because, like we said, what is the plan C? What, they've put themselves in position now where I think personally, maybe I'm an idiot, LeMahieu has all the leverage. Whereas the Yankees had the leverage before because they could say to him, hey, we really want you back, but worst comes to worst, we can look elsewhere to fill your position with a guy who's younger and better in Lindor. That's now out the window. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
You know what would be the ultimate George Steinbrenner move? As Stephen Cohen wants to be George Steinbrenner. He goes to DJ LeMahieu and says, we'll give you what you want. Come play for us in the Mets. Who cares if we don't have a position for you? We'll find room for you. And then the Yankees look stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
does that happen?
I don't. Yeah,
chances are no.
I don't think so.
But
I don't think so either.
But in that light of what the ultimate George Steinbrenner move would be, thinking of Stevie Cohen is that same sort of mentality of I want to make this team winners. Stranger things have happened, as they say.
If that happens, and I can't wait for that next pod.
You might not be alive for that pod.
But we'll worry about that. Oh, to take it back to when I saw the tweet, I had to move my car for street cleaning, and I was literally so hot in my car that I think it was 45 minutes. I was on Twitter and tweeting, and then the street cleaning people honked at me 10 times, and they were about to give me a ticket, and I almost took the ticket because I was like, "Don't disrupt me. I'm tweeting." But then I moved to the same spot. I just went around the block. So take that, street cleaners. But anyway, no.
Hoboken's finest, right?
Yeah. Back to what's important. I mean, look, listen. If DJ LeMahieu signs with the Yankees in 2-3 weeks, right, and it's for a lot less than what he wanted. It's 4 years. It is 4 years, and it's $80 million. And Cashman wins in the end. Because Josh, I do agree with you. I think LeMahieu does have the upper hand here. But say in 3 weeks, Cashman was like, "Yeah, I was right." And look, we got it done. But it's just a big waste of time. That's fine. Put the egg on my face. But
yeah, fine.
Yeah, fine. We'll take that. We'll take that. Egg on our face, whatever. So far, speaking of egg on my face, so far no pie on my face.
No pie on your face.
Because no free agents have signed yet. But I feel like it's close. I do. And then we're here a month from now, and it's not.
If that does happen in a month from now, you do have DJ LeMahieu signing for the Yankees. I would still come back to this conversation and say, rather be safe than sorry. Because for us and our mental sanity as Yankee fans, especially considering how bad this offseason has been in terms of excitement, I want to see my guy get here. To take a phrase out from E-Ray, that's future Julian's problem. That they spend a little bit more money on the guy who they need to have on their roster. Because if they don't have him, then they are a worse team than they were when they lost in the American League Division Series this past year. So I want it. Also, I don't want there to be any uncertainty with who's on our roster going into spring training. I mean, truthfully speaking, it's something that gets overlooked, but it's I want to make sure all the COVID protocols are in place, that everybody knows what they're doing when they go down to Florida for the spring training. I don't want there to be any, all right, we're signing DJ a week before, and then it turns out there's some issues related to COVID, and he's got to quarantine for a couple of weeks or something like that because he wasn't able to go through proper protocol or testing. Sign your guy. It's mid-January. If they need to sign a little bit more than what they need to, then so be it, because this guy's integral to our team. Josh already said it. He's the best player on the team. He's the best hitter on the team. He's a leader on the team. Now pay the guy. So
I just want to – you guys literally said it. But I remember a couple weeks ago, this was – it was different times in the DJ LeMahieu, market, and also Lindor was a Cleveland Indian. I think both of you guys said that you probably wouldn't give a fifth year. Have you changed your tune? Are you get it done?
Oh, yeah. I changed my tune now completely because Plan B is gone.
Yeah.
Plan B is gone.
Yeah.
Yankees wanted that to be their Plan B, but the Mets threw that under the bus because they weren't able to. And now you only have Plan A because Plan C is non-existent. It's doomsday scenario. You got to give him what he wants. And that's why Josh said he has all the leverage, because he does.
Yeah. I personally liked Plan B better than I liked Plan A. But now that Plan B is off the board, you have to give him whatever he wants to make sure that he doesn't go elsewhere, because that is literally the tipping point between being a perennial World Series contender to being a team that is going to have to fight for their postseason spot, kind of like how they had to fight for it in 2020, because the 10 games or whatever he missed were, in the grand schemes, a lot bigger than 10 games normally in a baseball season. And those 10 games almost cost them a playoff position. So
before we came on the air, I said to you, would you guys be surprised if the Yankees did not make the playoffs? You guys both, answered my question with you would. If DJ LeMahieu doesn't sign, I think I would be much more inclined to not be surprised if the Yankees didn't make it because of how bad their rotation is right now, and you're essentially losing an MVP.
Yeah, I mean, so if they don't bring him back, right, then we have
if
to
they don't bring him back.
We have to see what the rest of the team looks like, because they will do something. We just don't know. We know it's not going to be anything big, but we don't know what it will be. So I can't say for sure that they wouldn't, whatever. But I would be really surprised if he returns if they don't make the playoffs, because if it's expanded postseason, it's going to be like half the teams making it, and then looking at the rest of the the competition in the league, there aren't that many really good teams in their own division. And
they're getting Severino back at the deadline, and that's pretty much
that's right, baby. That's right. The Rays are weaker. The Red Sox right now are no better than they were last year. And the Blue Jays are probably the biggest competition. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't make it. But if maybe that changes when we look back in a month from now, when we're starting to preview spring training, maybe we have different thoughts based on what the finished product looks like.
Yeah, I'm with Josh too. I feel like even if they don't, DJ, which again will be doomsday scenario, I think that lineup, they still have too much talent in that lineup. Again, if healthy, if people start getting injured again, then that's a situation. But I still think that the Yankees, with no pitching staff right now, other than Garrett Cole and whoever, I still think that they would find a way. Again, if it's expanded postseason. And I think that's the case, right? It's going to be expanded postseason, right? Is that what they said?
We think so. We think so, but baseball being baseball, we don't know what the rules are for the upcoming season that starts in 5 weeks.
That is true. They're always a good regular season team, man. They find a way in the regular season. They do.
That's true.
Towards the end of September, we started getting nervous. Remember, they made it to the 8th seed, and the Orioles were right there, and it was almost really bad. I actually, for a second, thought they were going to – and then they went on, that 10-game winning streak. And then they went back on, that 10-game losing streak. Up and down. New York Yankees, baby. That's what they do. But,
anyway,
I still think they'll make the playoffs.
As far as other moves are concerned, because there was stuff that happened this past week for baseball outside of just Francisco Lindor and Cookie Carrasco going to the Mets, you had a couple of signings. They weren't the big superstar signings. That means that E-Ray would have to pie himself in the face, but there were some smaller signings. We could talk about them a little bit if you guys want. The Dodgers re-signed Blake Trinan. He was a guy I had talked about early in our episodes of the pod as maybe somebody, if the Yankees wanted to go and shore up their bullpen, they could have gone after, but he wound up staying in L.A. You had Liam Hendriks signing with the White Sox. That just happened within the last 24 hours. And then at the end of last weekend, you had the Nationals signing Kyle Schwarber, and then Tomoyuki Sugano agreeing with a renewed deal in Japan. He's going to be playing for the Yomiuri Giants this year instead of coming to the United States. So some of the moves that happened within the last 7 days or so, and as you guys all kind of pointed out, the market heating up a little bit, but still not at full boil.
Definitely not, but the Liam Hendriks move is probably I don't want to call it a big domino, but that is a domino for sure, because he was one of the better players available on the market, and now the White Sox scooped him up at what looks like a pretty nice deal, and they've got a really good team, and they look like possibly the class of the American League at the moment. We'll have to see how everything finishes out as the offseason, continues on.
And how Tony La Russa does as a manager.
Well, that's going to be must see TV. But in terms of just talent and pure, depth chart or whatever, they look like a very, very good team. And that was a nice move for them to, add a nice little piece to their bullpen. And I saw yesterday MLB Network released their top 10 relievers, and they had Liam Hendricks as the number one reliever in all of baseball. So that gives you an idea of what kind of player the White Sox just added.
That list was a little. I don't know why.
Yeah, it was a little.
I don't know why Hader was so low.
Yeah, he was like 9, I think.
I think it was 10.
Oh, 10. You're right.
Chapman was 7. I'll take it. That's where he's. That's where he is right now. He's definitely not a top 5 reliever anymore. We could talk about Chapman, his struggles, but we always said at least he was a top 5 closer. I don't think he is anymore. But yeah, man. My takeaways is Schwarber I think signed for $10 million, right? The Yankees were never going to do that. So
no, that may be $10, not $10 million.
Exactly, they were never going to do that. And yeah, talking about Hendricks, I mean, Josh again hit it. I think the White Sox on paper right now, they probably are the top of the American League, and they went for it, man. Other teams are just staying back, not trying to get better, and the White Sox signed the big signing with Hendricks. Last year they were an electric team, young team, exciting team, and this year they should be a lot better too. So, yeah, there's a new beast in the American League, I think. Again, on paper. We'll see what happens, translate when they get on the field, but I think the White Sox, that was a really good signing by them.
I agree with you guys completely. The only guy that we really talked about as far as the Yankees were concerned, outside of me mentioning briefly Blake Treinen, was Kyle Schwarber. And truthfully, at the end of the day, we know they were never going to really be in on him. There was no offer, I believe. There was a couple of tweets that the Yankees had been interested in him, so they were interested in the idea of him being there. But I'm sure once that $10 million price tag came up, they pretty much were like, all right, SpongeBob meme, I'm out. Type of thing. So there was probably no smoke nor fire when it came to what was happening there. As far as the last couple of things we can talk about on this week's episode of the pod, not related to related to the Yankees, but not related to free agency or anything with the players. And that is a story that came out this past week about a former Angels staffer who was alleging widespread use of foreign substances. So last March, the Angels dismissed their visiting clubhouse manager. His name was Brian Harkins. Nickname was Bubba. And there were allegations against Mr. Harkins that he was providing illegal substances to visiting pitchers in the clubhouse. And you might say, all right, well, it's the Angels, so who really cares? But one of the names in the apparent investigation that Mr. Harkins said was Garrett Cole. And he had mentioned that during Cole's time as a member of the Houston Astros, and we all know that Trevor Bauer said that they were doctoring a bunch of stuff and he thought they were a bunch of cheaters and all that. So this sort of gives credence, I guess you could say, to those allegations. Mr. Harkins said that he spoke to Cole via text when he was with Houston, and the text said, quote, "Hey, Bubba, it's Garrett Cole. I was wondering if you could help me out with this sticky situation. We don't see you guys until May, but we have some road games in April that are in cold weather places. The stuff I had last year seizes up when it gets cold." End quote. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Didn't he use an emoji? Oh.
He might have. That wasn't in the quote that I was reading. That was
okay.
So what are your guys' thoughts on Bubba Harkins's ratting, so to speak, on Garrett Cole and other major league pitchers for doctoring their stuff?
Well, clearly he has an axe to grind because he lost his job, and I think there's a lawsuit, right? And that's how this whole thing came to light. So he's obviously got an axe to grind. Not saying that he's lying or anything, but yeah, I mean, he's got an agenda clearly. A couple things for me, obviously, to steer it back to the Yankees as it relates to Garrett Cole. For one, I don't think if he really thought that all right, I guess to back it up a bit, maybe this is against the rules. I can't sit here and say that I've read the rule book and I know for sure that it's against the rules, but it's definitely it's become accepted for forever. As long as it's not obvious, like Michael Pineda, it's accepted. So if he really thought that what he was doing was really wrong and bad, I'm not sure that he would have been so willing to say, "Hey, it's Garrett Cole. I'm coming to you for advice on how to cheat." So I'm not too, worried about that. Also, this happened while he was an Astro, so this couldn't have happened last year. One, because the guy was fired, and two, he was on the Yankees, and the Yankees didn't make a West Coast trip last year. So, I'm not really I didn't really give this much thought last week. I haven't really given it much thought since. I'm not too worried about it. I don't really think much will come of it, if anything. I think if you asked the players that these pitchers face, would they rather them have this sticky stuff on their hands to help them control the ball or not? They would say yes, because they would rather the 99-mile-per-hour fastball head over the plate rather than at their head or at their neck or at their back. So
Exactly.
for me, it's much ado about nothing, just because the guy named a bunch of superstars in the in their report.
I mean, to me, it sounded like a bunch of bull, because, and I was thinking about this. Why would Garrett Cole text this dude and say it's Garrett Cole and then be like, yeah, help me out with this? If, like you were saying, it's illegal. You think A-Rod was texting Alex Bosch and being like, hey, need some more of those needles. Leave them on my doorstep. Really need help with hitting long balls.
Didn't we see some texts from them, though? Or something. I forgot the report, but
it wasn't as out in the open. It wasn't as out in the open.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It seems a little bit too wonky to A, really be that serious, and B, to even matter at the end of the day. And obviously you got to talk about it because it's a current Yankee, and probably outside of maybe 2 or 3 other Yankees, the biggest guy on the team. But it's definitely, it seems like a load of bull, if you ask me.
Yeah. Again, also, this was 2019, right? So it was Verlander and Cole against us, so we got cheated again. No, I don't really care, man. Like, again, I saw the article.
I mean, you do care, but no.
No, well, yeah.
No, you care about being cheated out of.
Yeah, but I mean, like Josh and you were saying, man, like, pitchers do this. Like, I think I think the way I read the article, like, it was a different type of mixture that they were doing, that maybe that is illegal, but we'll see if anything comes from this. I mean, I literally forgot about the article. I literally read it 3 days ago, and I thought I read it and I was like, oh, here we go. But then it was Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Felix Hernandez, Corey Kluber, Adam Wainwright. Yeah, and they were the ones mentioned in this article, but I don't think it's anything. Again, we can 2 months from now we'll see if like heavy fines and stuff like that will be coming down, but I really don't care about it.
I wouldn't be too worried about this at all. I think this is a non-story, personally. Yep, and it's probably annoying for him that he has to be mixed up in this, and he might get some questions about it when he's back to Tampa. But yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, would Joe Schmo rather Garrett Cole be throwing 99 over the plate or at his head? And I think that kind of says it, because it's really a question of competitive integrity, I guess. And if the banging on the trash cans, everyone flipped out about, rightfully so. But something like this is obviously something that everyone looks the other way at for numerous reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. With a couple of minutes left in the pod, I figured let's end it sort of on a lighter note. Last week, we had, on our episode of the podcast that we recorded, some good scenarios and interesting questions from the Twitter account Views from 314. They had a very fun question for this year to kind of ring in the new year. And that was, what is your favorite Yankees moment over the last 10 years? So obviously we spent a lot of time of the last 11 episodes or so crapping on the Yankees and their inability to spend money and ownership's supposed lack of desires to show urgency when it comes to signing free agents and making the necessary steps to win. But obviously over the last decade, there's been a lot of great moments. So 2011 to 2021, your favorite Yankees moment. I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it, because obviously that's a lot of time to think. So I will go first. So that way you guys can think about it. Favorite Yankees moment, 2017 wild card game, Didi Gregorius home run to tie it up after that horrendous first inning. Josh and I, we were sitting in the bleachers together watching the game, and I vividly remember them going down at 3-0. There was a guy, I forget whose uncle it was for the Twins.
It was Zach Granite's uncle, who was a Yankee
Zach Granite's
last year.
uncle. He was wearing like a Twins tuxedo or something like that in the stands of the bleachers. And he was giving all the Yankee fans the business when they were down 3-0. And then the euphoria, and E-Ray was in the building. He was just not sitting with us. But the euphoria of seeing the Yankees come back in that first inning and the stadium exploding and just going nuts. And then Josh and I embracing and jumping around in the bleachers and just screaming our butts off. And I feel like that whole playoff run, as we've talked about before, is the closest it's felt to a World Series since 2009. And for many of us, we were in our 20s then, and we were able to, be able to drink and go to games and really experience it maybe a lot more than we did in 2009. But that was like, man, the real like big playoff moment of like the last decade, I felt like, and had started that awesome run. And I loved being there in person. So that would be my pick.
E-Ray, you want to go first? Because I'm still thinking, and Jules took what I was going to say, so now I have to come up with something.
I know. Now he took mine too. I mean, we again, like Jules was saying,
and that's why I drive the train here.
That whole 2017 postseason, like you said, is everything. I guess honestly, I might take Josh's one next, but for me, it has to be Derek Jeter's last game. I mean, Josh and I are very big Derek Jeter fans. I'm not going to speak for Josh here because he's going to pick his own moment. But to see in his last game, Derek Jeter hit a walk-off at Yankee Stadium. I mean, I wasn't there personally, so that's not my favorite. That's just my favorite moment overall as a Yankee fan, being at home at the stadium regardless. That moment I will always remember. The next day, I bought every newspaper. That's the first time I've done that in a while. With Derek Jeter was on the cover, the back page, and I cried in my car. I was at work. This was when I worked at the Bergen Record at the time, and I saw that walk-off, and I literally had to go to my car to cry because I was so happy for Derek Jeter. So that's definitely a moment. I might cry right now, to be honest, thinking about it. No, I'm not. But that's a moment that I'll remember. And, of course, I have to give a moment that I was in the stadium for too. And I'm
all right, but don't do that first because Josh needs.
I might take Josh's moment. Yeah, you're right. Right. Josh, I'll let you go.
You get one moment. I'm not giving you.
You get one moment.
Well, both of you guys named really good ones. Those are two of my top moments ever. Not just in the last 10 years, but
that's true.
That I can remember as a fan. It's tough because, like you said, I mean, they've had a lot of really big moments and players that have been on the team throughout the last 10 years. They've done a lot of winning. They may not have, gone all the way like we've wanted, but they've done a lot of winning. They've won more games than any other team. So it's tough to narrow it down. I think that entire 2017, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one moment or game just because like Julian took the one game that really sticks out, but that entire 2017 run was, I think it was the most fun I've ever had as a Yankee fan. And I know that sounds nuts because they've won so much in our lives, five times in our lifetime. But there was something about it where it was like, I really remember, like 2009, I obviously remember because, how could you not? But 2017, there was something just maybe because of the fact that I was at the age I was at, I went to so many games.
I think you and I together went to the wild card game. We went to two games in the championship series. We went to one game, I think, in the division series. So, and then we watched that. You and I went to the bar downtown in the Fidei to watch the terrible No Girardi challenge game.
Yep.
Oh my God! I wanted him gone, but now I want him back.
Well, he was gone.
He was gone. I want him gone after that day.
That whole run though was so enjoyable because it came out of nowhere.
Yes.
And it wasn't 2009 was expected, and we had high hopes in 2010 and 2011 and 2012, and then 13, 14, 15, 16 were years where we didn't really hope or think much. And 2017 comes around, we got these young guys that we have high hopes
bombers.
That we think, we think in a couple years these guys are going to be the next group that leads us to the championships. And we thought that would happen. We thought what happened in 2017 would happen like years down the road.
Yeah.
And it kind of just happened out of nowhere. And that whole team was so fun. The thumbs down.
There's something just special about it.
There was something special. And just because, even though they didn't win it and they didn't go to the World Series, that doesn't matter so much to me anymore, because I always look back at that team and have like really, really amazing memories of rooting for that team. And maybe it's partly because of Aaron Judge's insane rookie season.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think I went to every game in that postseason at home at Yankee Stadium, except one. And it was that one that was probably the most exciting, other than the wildcard game, to be honest, was the game where they were down 4-0. I think it was in game 4 of the ALCS. And, Aaron Judge hits a home run, 4-1, Headley double. And
then he almost falls down.
Yeah, they come all the way back. Gary Sanchez with the big 2-run. I think that was that was like a comeback for the ages, to be honest. At that time, to tie the series, I was running around my apartment. I think I was running around Hoboken. I was yelling. My roommate at the time has a video somewhere. Like, I was just looking back, seeing how like excited I was. Like you said, Josh and Jules, that 2017, you always just think back at it, and you're always just going to bring a smile to your face. As a fan base, we were just so connected to them, I feel like.
I think the worst thing about them not winning the World Series, I feel like, other than them not winning, was just that we didn't get to have that World Series fun that the three of us, whether together or separately, got to experience in the wild card game and in the divisional series and in the championship series. I know you went to the Greg Bird game that gave him like 2 extra years of unnecessary playing time because he hit that one single home run, and it's like that was what was so awesome about it. I remember Josh and I were obviously big Francesa guys back when he was on, and that coincided with his first retirement tour, where he was kind of getting this last one big Yankee playoff run in, which obviously made it memorable, and everything happening with Girardi not challenging, and with the Yankees coming back from the game against Cleveland and all that sort of stuff. So it was an awesome series. And here's the thing: it's weird to say, but it's like if the Yankees went on a big World Series run now, we would be equally as hyped. But you would need some special moments and a lot of games to go to, and I feel like to equal the emotion of what we all felt. And now with ticket prices so insane, and with who knows what happens with occupancy with COVID, you might not be able to go to 4, 5, 6 playoff games in the span of a postseason like what we were able to do in 2017, and just how awesome it was and how everything sort of came together.
Yeah, and this isn't from the playoffs that year, but I was just thinking back. I went to a game. You guys probably remember the game. I went to the game on April 28th against the Orioles, where they were losing 11-4 in the top, or after the top of the 7th inning. It was
16 or 17.
11-4. It was 17. And they came back and won 14-11 in 10 innings. Matt Holliday hit a walk-off home run.
Oh, you were at that?
Kobe Ellsbury hit a grand slam, which may have been his last moment alive as a human. I don't think anyone's seen him since then.
Didn't they come back like 4 or 5 different times in that game too?
So I'm just looking at the line score here. So after the top of the 6th, they were down 9-1, and then they scored 3 in the bottom of the 6th, and then the Orioles scored 2 more in the 7th, and then the Yankees scored 4 in the 7th, 3 in the 9th, 3 in the 10th to come back and win. Yeah. So they were losing 9-1 in the 6th, and they ended up winning. And I was at the game, and I was like, this game sucks. CC pitched. He didn't pitch well. And then all of a sudden, it turned into probably the most memorable, at least regular season game that I've ever been to.
Yeah, I agree. As far as other games that I feel like I could try and think about off the cusp of my head, one that comes to mind, maybe not that memorable of a moment for any of us, but obviously the Raul Ibanez home run games.
Yep.
Back in the early part of the 2010s. Yep. And that was obviously incredible.
That was amazing.
Especially when they pinch hit A-Rod for him and how everything happened. And it stunk that really was the beginning of the end for Derek Jeter, that sort of run had, because that's when he broke his ankle and he wound up going and getting hurt. Josh, I know you and I were down the shore when this happened, but the back-to-back Tyler Austin, Aaron Judge home runs in their debut, which was something that, Austin never really panned out, but Aaron Judge, that was really the beginning of his big tear. And then later on that summer and for the remainder of the early fall, Gary Sanchez putting his name on the block and doing what he needed to do in order to win those games and do what needs to happen there. And not really a moment, but I feel like when Tanaka first came over and he pitched those first couple of games with Japan and how dominant he looked and things like that, that was really awesome. And then he obviously had the UCL problem, and he was still able to be a fantastic pitcher besides that. So
Tanaka.
Yep. Any other moments that come off the top of you guys' head, maybe if they're not your favorite, but that you can think of before we wrap things up here?
We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but when they traded for Stanton,
yep.
I know it wasn't on the field, obviously, but that was a huge day for us. We talked about it last winter when they signed Cole, same sort of thing. Those two really stick out in my head because
a moment that's shitty, but is that same sort of thing as DJ LeMahieu hitting the home run that didn't matter.
Oh yeah, that was incredible.
I don't want to talk about that.
We don't have to talk about
that. On my birthday.
We don't have to talk about
so much. I was literally.
That was a legendary home run that will never be remembered.
Yep.
They couldn't even give us breathing room. The 10th inning.
We had like 5 minutes to enjoy it.
Don't take it off. Oh man, no, like you guys were saying, man. As Yankee fans, we've had a lot of great moments in the last 10 years, and as Josh said, they had the most wins in that decade. We've seen it all except one thing.
Yeah, World Series.
And hopefully, we'll see it in the 2020s. But right now, not off to a great start.
Well, Inauguration Day for Joe Biden is a little under a week at the day that we'll post this podcast on Wednesday. And as Josh already talked about, the last couple of times a Democrat has been in the office, the Yankees have won a World Series. So we will see whether or not we get a World Series in 2021 or beyond because Joe Biden is in the White House. Now, E-Ray, you're usually the late breaking news man. Anything final to say before I give Josh his goodbye and we wrap things up?
One thing I have to say is earlier today, Baseball America tweeted out an article saying that the Yankees are expected to give a 7-figure bonus to a Dominican shortstop, pretty good shortstop. His name is, where is it? Hans Montero.
Hans Montero.
The real deal. The Yankees have done a lot of damage down there. In international spending, international signings. They got their guy, the Martian. Hopefully he can come up pretty soon.
Josh has his rookie cards.
Yep, Josh has his rookie card. We'll see what he can do. I mean, the hype for that guy is unbelievable. I mean, they're comparing him to next. I mean, that's a lot of hype. The next Mike Trout. You better be it, bro. Okay. But we'll see. That's all I got for here, though, with my late breaking news. Also, I have to say real quick, as I always do this, since the Mets were a big part of this conversation with Lindor, the Meet the Mets song, because I heard it a lot on Twitter. It's a pretty entertaining song.
Catchy? Yeah, it's a good song.
It's a catchy song.
Here's the thing, not to get into a full rant, but the Mets are the kitschier younger brother of the New York Yankees.
Don't call them younger brother.
Yankees are suave. The Yankees are chill. They're like they're late 20s, early 30-year-olds, and the Mets are like the funny, goofy, like early 20s. Still loves to go get out and get drunk and hang out and just be.
So we're the Yankees.
They got the fun. They got the cool song. They got Mr. Met who flips the bird to fans and stuff like that. So that's what the Mets got. That's their thing. But at the end of the day, you take what you want. You either want kitschy and entertaining or you want cheap and World Series. Josh, any final thoughts?
Not really, man. I say it every week when we do this. I hope by the time we come back, there's some action. There was over the last week, so hopefully some more. And hopefully DJ LeMahieu is back, and we can now from there move on to worry about how they're not addressing the other needs.
Absolutely. I agree. Well put. As far as our podcast, you can find us each and every week wherever you listen to podcasts. And that includes Spotify, that includes Apple Podcasts, that includes TuneIn, and that includes SoundCloud. And you can also watch our podcast on YouTube. by going to my YouTube page, Julian Coltree, and you can find it there. Or you can go to our Twitter account at @RLilYanksPod. We have our link tree there, so you can click on anything you want. But until then, folks, I'm Julian Coltree, joined as always by Josh Levin and Eric Ray Sepulveda. We will see you next week.